Do you believe that there is some connection within planets and how they affect our destiny?
It's clear that the planets play a role in our lives.
Are UFOs real?
The government's hiding stuff from you. I've seen things in life. I've seen UFOs in the sense of unidentified flying objects. I'm a pilot. I've seen things in the night sky.
Do you think the world is going to end at some point?
It could get very ugly very quickly.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And because you're an astronomer and your expertise in this is just so vast, I actually personally have read a lot about astrology, which is the study of planets. And there is a huge link between astronomy and astrology. So do you believe that there is some connection within, planets and how they affect our destiny and that whole aspect of free will versus destiny? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I'm afraid. I mean, I know that won't sit well with many people.
There's mixed views. Some people think it's free will. Some people think it's destined with planets.
Yeah, I think, those are very big questions, right? Do we have free will or not? For me, it's completely clear that the historical links with astrology are real, right? That studying the motion of planets and mapping them out and seeing how they move in the sky, the subject of astronomy was much more tied to astrology historically. But that break came a long time ago in terms of essentially the way science works, right? It has to be a testable hypothesis. If firstly, the gravity of you in this room to me is having more of an influence right now than Jupiter is, right? Just the law of gravity. So Isaac Newton from the 1600s, we figured out pretty quickly that Jupiter's gravity does not have the influence that even objects in this room do. It's just the weakness of Jupiter's very big, but it's very, very far away. Now, people then will point at the sun having an influence on Earth, making it go in orbit, and the tides of the moon
they
and
see
the sun.
the tides.
So it's clear that the planets play a role in our lives, and those roles, when it comes to things like the moon and the cycles of the moon, and how that's linked to certain bodily functions,
and it affects your mood as well sometimes.
Yeah, and so those sorts of senses that, of course, that we're in touch with the universe we live in. Certainly the Earth, sun, and moon. It's obviously the sun goes up, it goes down, so that's going to have an effect on you. Whether Jupiter's in the sky or not, or behind clouds, or whether you can see, Venus at the moment or not. That's built into that system, but there's no basis for it from my perspective as a scientist at all. And that predictive power of where you're born and how you're born and which moment, and again the midwife bending over you at the moment of birth, and when she's standing on the left side of the right side of your mother at the moment of birth, has way more influence gravitationally. Now, okay, maybe if you want to posit a non-physical force, that there's a spiritual link between the planets and us, but it's not gravity, then you're in that realm then where I, as a scientist, I don't have anything to say, because we're not doing science. We're not saying that force has a predictable effect and the outcome is this. And there are things, of course, there are vast unseen forces in the universe. I see light, but that's the result of the electromagnetic force and of photons of things which I don't appreciate individually. So to say that there's absolutely no link, through modern physics, we can say that there's no link at all. If you want to then say, in a religious sense, that there's another way of interacting with us, well, yeah, what can I say? Yeah, I would again say, if one claims that Jupiter being in this location, Venus being in this location makes a person good, or makes a person more likely to win the lottery, or will make you have a good day or a bad day, it's like, show me, demonstrate this is real. And a lot of that, of course, has to do with the fact, if you look at a very, very low level daily astrology in the newspaper, all Libras will have this today.
Yes, that's not true.
No, and then you project on that and say, oh, you know what? Oh, I did feel that way today. Yeah. No, come on.
Like kind of a placebo effect sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right?
And the placebo effect is very real and incredibly powerful. We can convince ourselves of many things. Now, again, ancient astrology, which is, or the full-blown astrology of plotting out massive star charts and so on is a whole different game, right? This is just populism.
Yeah, there's like this Vedic astrology and Western astrology, which has been more modernized, but
And of course, it's no wonder that, again, people seeking meaning in a world which is not obvious how it works. Where does thunder and lightning come from, right? Which god made that, right? It's such a powerful force. That must be God. Well, he was called Thor until we figured out we didn't need him anymore because we know how thunder and lightning works. So astrology, again, like other faiths in a way, when you posit that it's going to do something which I can test as a scientist, then you're in my territory. You're on my football pitch, right? And then if you can't demonstrate that that actually works, and not anecdotally, but statistically and verifiably and double blind, all of the things you have to do for science, then I can say, no, it doesn't work. If you want to posit a kind of supernatural force which pervades the universe and somehow the planets are tied into that, and if I stand on my head on a Thursday and I do the right thing, that will happen, but it's not physics anymore. It's not science.
yes, it's more like experience or how you're feeling.
And all I would say there is that, there's a step at the end where you could call it a leap of faith. You can say, well, everything else I've seen up until this point, right? We got rid of Thor, we got rid of this god, we got rid of that god. Why don't we get rid of the last one? Or why don't we get rid of that thing? Do we need that? Do we need that kind of crutch in life to explain the way things are? Or do we just say they are the way they are? And you have to kind of get on with it, right? So I suppose, and I don't make a claim for being clever or anything special, I made that leap a long time ago and said, don't need it, right? And I don't see that it works. Now, have I made a lifelong study of astrology? No, I've decided to devote myself to astronomy. So yeah, and maybe that, I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for, but no, it's like in the same way that I'm an atheist, not an agnostic. I've made that kind of, I've come to the conclusion, I don't see why it's needed, so why hang on to it?
Yeah. And I think shifting gears a little bit, so I have a background a little bit in medical science, but not at all in astronomy. So this whole concept of, are UFOs real? Are they? I have no knowledge, to be honest, about this. So you would be in a better place to say about UFOs and their reality.
Yeah, I think that the best book I could recommend to anybody to read on this topic is a book by Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan, famous planetary scientist, astronomer, unfortunately died quite a couple of decades ago now, but very influential on the way the public saw science in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He wrote a book called The Demon-Haunted World. It's a lot about superstition and the way that humans place patterns on structures in the world in order to kind of find partly meaning or find excuses or find conspiracy or mystery. And Sagan has quite a long section on witchcraft and on UFOs. And he writes quite coherently about the fact many of the phenomena associated with UFOs, this sort of idea of abduction, this idea of a crushing weight on your chest and a kind of a inability to move, almost the same phenomenology exists in descriptions of witchcraft from hundreds of years earlier. So ufology really came around at the time when the first satellites were being launched, or just before. The idea that rockets were being launched and could be sent to space, it kind of got transposed into, oh, it's aliens then. Whereas 200, 300 years earlier, it was witches doing this to me. And many of these phenomena, and I'm not to reverse it, I'm not a medic, I'm an astronomer, but the way Sagan talks about it, he would suggest that many of these things are things that the human body goes through. And the most obvious one is we dream.
Yeah.
We go to sleep at night and we're in a different place than is expected. The human brain conjures up visions.
Dreaming is a state of consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can experience terror. You can experience great exhilaration. You can have lucid dreams where you are absolutely in that place.
But are they real when you wake up?
No, exactly. I mean, I've lucid dreamed a few times in my life. I mean, people claim you can actually train yourself to a lucid dream. I'd love to, because real dreaming it always has that unreality to it. But the few times I've been lucid dreaming, I have been absolutely in that place. I've kind of known that it wasn't real, but every stimulus in that space was real.
Have you been able to kind of shift your dreams or guide yourself through that? Or
occasionally I have been able to interact with dreams in the sense of sort of saying, it sometimes just in the sense of, this is not real. You need to wake up now, right? I mean, many of us have flying dreams, right? And or anxiety dreams, things which are very much from
subconscious blocks,
subconscious things that you want to try to get out or achieve, or things from childhood. I mean, where the flying dream comes from. And there have been times in my life where I've woken up in the morning, convinced myself, oh, maybe you can fly, because that was so real. And then 3 minutes later, you go, shut up. I mean, that's ridiculous. So the fact that those things exist, and of course, humans are not all the same. Humans experience many chemical shifts in their brain in different ways. There are all sorts of medical diagnoses of, at the extreme, schizophrenia and other things. So the idea that the human brain can convince itself that it's in a different space, but not really knowing how to explain that. I mean, another classic one for me would be migraine auras. I don't suffer from migraine headaches at all, but for many years now, on a, sort of not a regular basis, sometimes if I'm more stressed, I'll get them. You get these amazing jagged patterns in your eyes which expand out from the center, scotoma it's called, and it grows into, and it's very geometrical. It's not kind of blurry, like blobby. It's sharp, jagged.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The first time I had it, it scared the crap out of me.
Because I'm actually very prone to migraines and headaches.
I'm lucky I don't get the headaches afterwards. I get the aura, but I don't get the headaches. And if I wasn't able to go to the internet afterwards and find what was one of those, I had it when I was talking to somebody. I'm going, what is going on? This is not good. So now I know what they are, and they go away after 30 minutes, and I'm cool with it. But that's partly because other people explain what it was, right? So you can see how things like UFOs are a part of a continuum of people projecting things which they have felt. And then it becomes part of conspiracy theory, of course, which is very convenient in the modern world to say the government's hiding stuff from you. You don't trust them. There's evidence for this. And as I said earlier on, right, astronomers, scientists are all too talkative. There's no way we would have held that secret. And again, people will say, you would say that, and it's all part of the conspiracy. And where do you go with conspiracy theory, right? Yeah. And many conspiracy theories, UFOs, if you do the kind of a matrix of conspiracy theories, people who believe in UFOs also tend to believe in other conspiracies, 9/11 and all this kind, So it's a state of mind which also can be self-reinforcing, right? If you feel paranoid that people don't believe you on one thing, you'll find other places that, but this must be true because that's true over there as well. And social media, of course, has enabled this to spread wildly, because historically you might have one person in the village who also believed in these things, right? And everybody else would say, come on guys, just stop this. But now you can build a village, a town, a city worldwide by joining a club and saying, yeah, but it's true, isn't it? Like, I've seen it over here. And I mean, the one thing I would say is everybody carries a camera now, highly sophisticated camera.
You don't know what the truth is.
Well, the thing is that where are the great pictures of UFOs? I mean, we're still seeing the fuzzy rubbish that we saw back in the 50s and 60s when nobody carried a camera around. It's like, come on, everybody should have high-def pictures of UFOs all the time if they're real. The flip side being that we can also create amazing visual effects these days. And the people are making fake videos, dumping them on the net and saying, hey guys, look. So there's a political angle to this as well, of course. And that political angle is an interesting, particularly in the American context, is people don't trust government. People say you're hiding, show me the evidence. And then certain politicians weaponize that. They will say, I'm a kind of renegade politician. I want to be on your side and say the government has been hiding things. So I'm going to create an investigation into UFOs, and I'm going to force NASA to join in because I need to show that maybe they are hiding things. And it only adds to the fact that people think you are hiding things. So I've seen things in life. I've seen UFOs in the sense of unidentified flying objects. I'm a pilot. I've seen things in the sky. I've seen things in the night sky. But you go, it's one of those. There are amazing things occur in the night sky if you spend time looking at it. Even satellites going overhead and blinking lights and all sorts of things, or Venus hovering by the horizon, or mirages. But there's a wish fulfillment also about all of this. I want to believe that there's something beyond, the X-Files thing. I want to believe. It's like, yeah, well, if you want to believe, then you probably do believe, and you're discounting the evidence which says it's not real. This is just human psychology. So, but again, UFOs really only became prominent when people started actually putting stuff into space. So maybe in 50 years' time, it'll be another phenomenon, which is, I don't know, maybe it's the people with the vaccine, right? Oh, I shouldn't take the vaccine because it's going to, do things to me. It's another conspiracy theory. Sorry, I'm not very entertaining in that regard when it comes to these sorts of things. It's like, can I do it?
You can give a really brief answer to this one. Do you think the world is going to end at some point? Or when people say, like, oh, it's going to end in 20 years or 30 years? And you can be short about this, but like your first instinctive answer.
Yeah, it depends what the question means. If, there's the apocalyptic thing, that the world is going to end in a religious sense. Armageddon is coming. The world is going to blow up. No. I mean, there's a lovely cartoon I like to phrase this. I think it expresses it in a short way. It has a little child being held in the arms of the goddess Gaia. And the goddess Gaia is a very loving character. She's looking down at the child, and the child is looking up and saying, it's just a cartoon, it's not real, saying, oh, I feel so sad that we've screwed so many things up, and we're so bad, we might not be here in the future. And the goddess is looking down, and then sort of halfway through the cartoon, the child says, it'll be so sad when we're gone. And Gaia says, you know what, we won't miss you. We'll go on without you. It's fine. So the Earth isn't going to come to an end. It'll find another equilibrium. It will be disastrous for many animals, many species. It'll be disastrous for us. Will our civilization end in 10, 50 years' time? Let's put it this way. We're walking rapidly towards conducting that experiment, and we should be aware of the experiment we're conducting. It could get very ugly very quickly through climate change, through the wars triggered by climate change. I hope it doesn't. I have children. I don't want it to. I'm not trying to be a doom monger. We know how to fix it. We know what needs to be done. We're not doing it.
Yeah. And the last question is, and you can take maybe a second to think about this, but if there's one advice that you think, like the best advice you've received in your life so far, what would that be? You can think about this one. Something you think that is really powerful.
Yeah. I had a teacher when I was young. I had many teachers when I was young by definition, but I had one particular teacher, and he taught me to look at things skeptically. And I don't mean be a skeptic, be a doubter, be a pessimist. Look at things and try to find out what somebody might try to sell you. I was young at the time. He probably didn't use those terms. He said, look at the world, examine the world, try to think about it. Don't be sucked in just by the easiest, quickest first answer. The world is very complicated. Much of what we do is, when we're engaged in daily life, is fantastically complicated, and we navigate our ways through it. But we do so by blocking lots of things out because it's too complicated to absorb all of that. Take the time, sit back, have a look.
Have the right judgment. Try to.
And ask other people as well, right? They may have better judgment than you. How to phrase it, right? But the other thing, and it's a completely different thing, which I've told my kids over the years, is remember, other people are different to you. And I don't mean that in the sense that you're better, quite the opposite. Don't necessarily believe that other people's experience is the same as yours. Find your own, and be skeptical if somebody's coming along, or you look at somebody and say, how can they possibly be thinking that? Well, they have a different experience to you. So be aware that we share a lot, but there's an individuality about people as well. And bridging that takes effort, right? Don't judge people for what they're doing necessarily, but also realize don't expect people to do what you want just because you think they'll do the same thing you want.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big takeaway. I've tried to learn that, implement that in my life as well. Well, it was wonderful having you, Mark, here. I'm so glad we could host you here, and your flight is tomorrow, so it was perfect timing. And you're intelligent, and you definitely have a very spiritual and compassionate side too. So thank you so much. It was a really big honor.
Pleasure to be invited. Thank you very much.